Good morning, everyone. We're going to be talking about um, two products this morning that you're probably thinking, oh no, we're going to have to listen to a bunch of really boring science from Jackie this morning. But I'm going to talk science, but I'm not going to talk about all of these ingredients because I absolutely cannot pronounce them. I could probably spend some time learning, but I'd rather talk about the effects of these two amazing products. As I have been encouraging people to take them, and as I have been getting results from people for months now, um, I'm consistently hearing such positive things. I'm hearing just their bowel regularity, how much better they're feeling, the lift in their mood, and just a general sense of well being. Our bodies need to have a general sense of well being, but we're living in a time where it is extremely difficult to get what we need from our foods to really be healthy. And we can't always get organic. And now we can't always be positive that the word organic's not being manipulated. So these products, the Phyto Power products, are just an excellent addition to our line of LifeVantage products. As I was thinking about this week, I remembered way back in the 70s, when my little boy, my oldest son, was born in 1970. I was researching like crazy every book I could get because I wanted to do everything I could as a mother and do it right and feed him correctly and everything. And I had a book. Unfortunately, I loaned the book out. Now I can't seem to find it. And if I could remember the exact name, that might help. But it was from the, I guess, Salt Institute. I don't even know if most of you are old enough to remember that, but they were always doing research and publishing it. And that particular little book had a very interesting study. They took a lot of little babies and they put uh, little dishes of various baby foods in front of them. And they let the baby choose what the baby wanted to eat. And the results of that research was that over a given few days, a baby would naturally balance its own food. So, for example, one baby may for 4 days eat spinach and then suddenly reach for the beets. So what I did with my little boy, in fact, I did this with all my children. I would turn when they got to the baby food stage, I would turn the little bottles of baby food over and put them on their little high chair and watch what they would eat. And it was exactly that same way. For maybe 3 days, they'd eat carrots, and then they would reach for the spinach. Now, this is how the body is actually designed, isn't it? Even from the book of Genesis, the eyes look at the food, and then the eyes, actually the lamp to the body, the way that our cells process, makes a decision as to whether or not we need that food, we want the food. If that brain is operating properly, which it's not, and most children with ADD, ADHD, autism, and childhood diseases. So the eyes look at the food and the eyes decide, that looks good to eat. Not the eyes, the cells of the body look at the food and decide that looks good to eat. And maybe we just eat and eat and eat, such as in the spring when the plums are ripe, then followed by the peaches and the watermelon and so forth. We just eat and eat and eat, and our cells are replenished. And we get a really balanced um, nutrition. However, in today's world, that is almost impossible, isn't it? Nor do we typically eat seasonally. So as I was thinking about that, I thought, um, if every day we had this plethora of beautiful fruits and vegetables and deep purples and reds and oranges, and we could let our eyes select what we need, we would probably choose, we would probably be able to balance our own systems. Um, so as I thought about that this week, I thought about how convenient it is to anything that our eyes might desire to eat because our cells are saying, let that dumb human know what we need is right here. Um, and then the other thing I was thinking about this week was I have followed since around 2007 the Human Genome Project, where they began to unlock the um, the microbiome. And there were amazing things they began to discover. They began to discover that the gut was much more varied than they thought. And I'm going to show you a little science later about that. But they also began to discover that certain probiotics, certain gut microbiota could be traced back to the very tribes, the very ancestors we came from. And that continued through the line to today. So it doesn't matter if 1,000 years ago our people lived in Russia or our people lived in Africa, some of those same probiotics had made their way the gut biota until today. And I'm not sure what year they began to really recognize that the mother delivering the baby gave the baby the digestive flora. Maybe they've always known it. I didn't know it. But it gave the baby the digestive flora from the mother. Baby didn't need it in the womb, but it needed it when it was going to be birthed. So we call it the mother's last gift before the baby leaves the body is her own digestive enzymes, her own gut microbiota. Then virally, the baby begins to pick up other gut microbiotas from the father or whoever's kissing the baby. Uh, we all seem to have an impulse if we have a bit of normalcy. If we're holding someone's baby, we will just kiss the baby. So we're actually transferring as we're doing this. So the baby begins to acquire a gut microbiota. And depending on that, depending on the ancestral gut microbiota, which in my mind, and I think this is going to be proven in years to come, determine the inheritance of what we call inherited disorders as it relates to disease. That it's coming in bloodline and the gut biota, microbiota to determine our health. But then as we add good or bad microbiota, it begins to determine how those genes are expressed and whether or not we get, for example, diabetes 2, this, that, and the other, added to the fact of the foods that are available for us. Now, I know teaching school, and Cindy probably will attest to this too, when we got food stamps, our children, I taught high schoolers, and between class break, they would go to their lockers and pull out the most awful junk food you've ever seen. Um, Big bottles of like orange soda, for example, and chips and all sorts of things that shouldn't have been eating. And they would just be cramming it in. And the good old days of having a piece of ham and a biscuit and a couple of eggs for breakfast were gone. Instead, they were just bringing junk food, eating it between class. And this was one of the reasons that I began to recognize, because I'd been teaching since 1962, that nutrition affected behavior. So, can we expect some better behavior, I think we can. I'm already hearing that from people uh, who have tried already to correct what's going on in their gut. So I'm going to try to share a little bit with you this morning, I hope. We don't have that pill yet for tech, but let's talk about this first one. Now, this one is defining the human microbiome. It's from 2013. So there's a whole lot of new information out there since then. But if you look down here just a little bit, you will see that they're that this is an emerging field as they sequence what's going on. But what I wanted you to see here um, is that the human microbiota consists of the 10 to 100 trillion symbiotic microbial cells that each person has. Um, Now, when you think about those huge numbers, you easily recognize that the human microbiome is much greater than our genes and much greater than the very cells in our body. So, what does this mean in long term for us? It means that our gut is simply a lot more complicated than we ever thought it was. And new studies that emerge all the time, and I can't keep up with all of them, explain more and more what it is to be human, what inheritance actually means, what can we do to change body and mind. And for years, forever, I had taught that the brain governed the gut because that's what I had learned around 2000. And a lot of our science with LifeVantage contributed to understanding this in the global scientific community. We discovered no, 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 the gut controls the brain. Uh, Adding to that was the discovery that our neurotransmitters are made in the gut. So if your gut is in a mess, your neurotransmitters are going to be as well. So this is how we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Um, we we have probiotic. Now this little article refers to gut bacteria, and that's fine. We've got bacteria, we have viruses, we have fungi, we have probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, digestive enzymes, and all sorts of other things in our body. I usually refer to them as critters that constitutes about 4 pounds. That's what we've said about 4 pounds, but for some people, it may be as much as I read recently 30% of their weight may be this gut microbiota. And you're thinking it's fat, and you're like, man, I got to lose some fat. Do we actually need to lose the weight in our gut microbiome if they're bad? We do. Because, see, they actually live in little colonies. And they have something called quorum sensing, which means they can communicate. I talk about this in my book, Silent Takeover. The bad guys, if they get a chance, and sometimes the bad guys get a chance by the change in your body temperature, they start multiplying like, now's our chance. We're going to take over this body. And the good guys are going, no, you don't. No, you don't. But if there's not enough of these good guys, they're too compromised, these guys get the upper hand. One of those you will know, H. pylori. We thought for years that ulcers were strictly stress, and then found out who knew this little, I guess I don't know what it is, I guess it's a bacteria that actually looks like a little helicopter. H. pylori was the cause of ulcers. And you need a little bit of it, but conditions, stress can contribute, but foods and so forth can cause that to begin to govern the gut microbiota. So this little article that I wanted to point out to you was I was wondering, I know the gut replaces itself every 5 to 7 days, but how long does it actually take to change your gut microbiota? Now, some people have told me that in 24 hours they were better. I don't have a doubt. They may have gotten good nutrition for the first time in years. Others within days were like, I am having regular bowel movements, and they're like normal. It doesn't take very long to change certain aspects of your gut. But what about long term? This little article is saying that it's for many people, it's going to take 6 to 12 months. And they're just suggesting that maybe you eat all of these foods right here. Not a bad idea, is it? However, this is a whole lot more convenient. I'm not encouraging you not to eat correctly. I'm not encouraging you not to eat. But what I am saying that for most people right now, 6 months or a year on this product, or even 3 months, may make a huge difference in your health. The word fiber has become a common word, um, as has probiotics and now prebiotics. I remember when antioxidant became such a popular word. These were not words we had before, or maybe scientists did, but in the common conversation, words like antioxidants began to um, appear. Now, what are your prebiotics? These mainly come from fiber. Um, this little article says if you increase fiber by 6 grams a day, that you're going to see improvement, but you're advised to eat 30 grams of fiber every day. And quite honestly, most people don't do that and don't want to. Uh, and the more fiber you eat, the more water you're going to need as well. So, this idea when you have a disturbed gut of just having to be so on guard about what to eat and what not to eat, it can easily be solved um, if you're having a compromised gut by adding these phytopowers P84. The prebiotics are the fiber that feeds your good probiotics, and that's why the combination is so important. And some of you are on Mind Body, so you're getting a lot of good fiber. Um, most everyone now knows about yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, um, and many people are making their own fermented food because they're trying to get more probiotics that will live, that will actually live. Uh, some of you will remember when we were buying probiotics that had to go in the refrigerator all the time because they would die. When LifeVantage introduced their probiotic, I was thrilled to see that they had a system that would allow it to get to the small intestine without dying. But what happens to the dead probiotics? What happens to the items in your gut that still have some value but are no longer alive? You see, your fungi, your viruses, your bacteria have to be alive in your gut. So when they die, what actually happens to them? That's this new word that most of us are hearing post probiotics. They actually are going to go to your large intestine, and the post probiotics are like the scavengers that are going to clean up and make use of everything else. This is a good little chart if you want to look at it sometime, um, and especially if you're trying to explain a little bit about our product. And then this one, which is very important for you all when you're trying to explain to a person and you cannot make claims. However, I think we can make some pretty good claims with these products. Um, this was reduced November 2025 when we got when we acquired Love Biome, positively impacts gut peptide production. That's going to include your GLP-1 production. It activates key elements for comprehensive gut health. This is huge. And the reason it is so huge uh, is that it was an independent lab that did this study. New in vitro research suggests that P84 influences key gut peptides, including one by more than 1,000%, supporting cellular pathways tied to regulation, repair, think leaky gut, and restoration. Um, so when you look down here, control third party study targeted gene expression and protein concentration were measured using 4 gut cell types. 14 gut peptides and proteins known to regulate, repair, and restore the gut were studied. And you will see here the GRP, which is a signaling messenger that tells your body to do a better job, fire up the digestion, use what this person's eating, was increased by over 1,000%. That is amazing. The gut lining at 116% increase in repair for leaky gut. That is amazing. And then the VIP, which calms down overactive areas of the gut, uh, was improved by 100%. The OXM, which, listen to this, coordinates nutrient absorption. That's why these drinks are so good for children. Had a 77% increase and how well we're going to absorb our nutrition. And then the CCK was increased by 69% and how we process fats and proteins. This is really huge. Um, you notice here that they're going to do, and I don't know whether this study is completed yet. I don't think it is, where they combine Protandim, MindBody, and the P84. So what do we have here? One thing we have is a very expensive product, which underscores that our people need to make money. Um, to become independently wealthy, great, but they need to make money to pay for what their body needs. We're not living in an environment now, certainly not in our local grocery stores, nor in our backyard, that will allow us to get what our body needs. With children, and I have seen this way, way, way before recent studies, I began to correlate nutrition and the gut to learning and behavior problems way before we started getting uh, half of the classroom in a disorder. It was way before that. It was with one or two. Sometimes I could notice what they were eating and meet with their parents and make some suggestions. But what I've consistently heard is he won't eat this, he won't eat that, he won't eat the other. Picky children may very well do this. Changing your picky child will take longer, but nevertheless, this is a beginning. I have to say that I was amazed when I began to realize what these products could do. A lot of what I had hoped for and had sought figuring out, trying to get particular diets together to help were solved with 2 little envelopes a day. So I encourage you, get your customers own it. But for most people, we got to help them make some additional income to cover the price. Carol?